Well, Akin Okunwowo now joins us to discuss the menace. He runs an advocacy against cultism and gangsterism in schools, and he is the author of the book, Beware of Cultism, The Gathering of Demons, which was awarded the most outstanding publication on campus, Cultism in Nigeria, by the National Council of Women's Societies in Nigeria. Well, good morning, Akin, and thank you for joining us on the morning show today. Well, before we delve into these issues and the menace, I'd like for you to talk to us about your book and what we can learn from it.
Well, this book, when I wrote it many years ago, because it took me a lot of years to write it, taking records. Then we don't depend much on the internet. We were keeping newspapers. We're in the university. But, you know, we started something we call anti-cult, and I was the leader then when we were in school. We felt there was this menace, and we could talk to ourselves as students, appeal to ourselves and discourage this thing. But unfortunately, along the line, we didn't realize we were going to something beyond our control. So we ended up winning some of our students, but later on we realized there are who and who in this country who were involved, and up to today we were victimized too. But we stood our ground, and all these things, I was also expelled as a student leader. But all these things motivated me into writing the book. And the book is called Anti-Cult Bible. So it really dealt about this issue. A lot of people in the society don't really understand this menace. The menace is beyond what we are thinking. People have no idea about the real nature of campus cultism. Campus cultism, to us as anti-cultists, is satanism. All the fraternities and sororities, they have bush names, and these bush names are given to students during the initiation. So it's more or less like a religious thing. It's more or less like a worship thing. It's more than we are thinking. The various cult groups, Eya, Yebuka, mention them, Vikings, mention the various, all of them. They have bush gods. And those bush gods, they name their members after these bush gods when they are being initiated. So there is more about the idea of worshiping, and there is need to help some of our children because they are helpless. Like, for example, let me talk about this issue of this 12-year-old boy that was Sylvester. Sylvester, to me, is a victim of cultism. But those who killed him, the society do not understand that they are also victims of cult membership. Because cultism started in 1964, when some of the parents of these children were not born, or they were still young. And the society failed to really curb this menace. And at the end of the day, it went out of hand. And today, many innocent children we are still giving birth to will be initiated. And now we want to come up and punish these children in future. Are they not victims of cult membership? They are. Because the society have not done enough to ensure this menace is totally discouraged. Do you know that up to today, many people even believe so much that with cultism, they can be connected to high places. With cultism, they can get away with anything at all. And now the society security system is failing. It didn't just fail today. When you walk around the neighborhood, you are being threatened or nobody can help you. So they find this cultism thing handy. So when anybody oppresses them, they can gather themselves and defend themselves. So the society, look at the case of Ojodu Grammar School, when the students, a truck rammed into the students, crushed some of them. What happened? Within a twinkle of an eye, the society is not looking at some sensitive things. Within a twinkle of an eye, when the students saw that gory sight, blood, they were traumatized. They do not believe in the system. They went in wire, they protested and attacked police station and ready to destroy. They destroyed anything aside. Why? They do not believe in the system.
So, sorry to cut you short. I just want us to, be properly moderated so that, yes, you refer to Jodu. We do not know for a fact, that the burning and the attacks were, solely done by the student. We know that, yes, many area boys also hijacked it. But first thing that I'd like to do is to congratulate you on this book.
Thank you,
I mean, any attempt to put out, document, I mean, it's an intellectual job. It's something that, we should applaud. But two things from me at this point. One, what informed this interest? Are you a redeemed cultist, or you were a victim of cultism while you were in campus, and that was what led to the anti-cultism movement that you led and that you were part of? And then secondly, when you refer to what happened in 1964, and, it looks to me like maybe you're mixing cultism, the violent manifestation of cults, with confraternity, given that when a few people, students at that time, of higher institution, like Professor Wale Soyinka and co, the pirate confraternity and stuff, going by what they have said and going by what we know, they were not violence-driven cults. They were membership sort of confraternity, to gather people together, to network, and probably to subscribe to other ideals that might not be, very, pedestrian. I think maybe there's a difference between cultism and confraternity. Did you notice that? Or you think anybody who assembled outside of the established norms of the society is a cultist?
Oh, well, my own perception, let me first start with the second question.
Okay.
See, this idea of fraternities and sororities were borrowed from the Western society. But we have one problem in this society, that we always corrupt. Things always easily get corrupt. So, you see, they use it as a thing of honor, achievement, academic achievement in those parts of the world. But here, you just realize that, how do we get it wrong? One, but there is one thing I want to note. When they founded pirate in 1964, the word pirate has a meaning. It's a meaning of somebody who appropriates to himself the work of other people, somebody who steals other people's sweat, or a thief on a high sea is a pirate. Now, look at that meaning, value, social value. Then, look at it again. The subsequent code that broke away from pirate called itself buccaneer, a reckless adventurous. Now, look at others. And what are their modus operandi? When somebody came and said, it's a word appropriate to a thief. So when you look at some of all these meanings, you will understand that from the beginning from the inception, the seed of discord have been planted. And then if they have done all this
maybe you might want to
out of their innocence.
Translate that for OG.
Okay.
I was going to ask, but I thought that you would translate it.
Yes, I will.
You just said
I will.
in Yoruba, yes.
Yes, but before I want to make a statement. Even if they have planted this out of their youthful exuberance, youthful innocence, the devil does not recognize innocence. Because in it, there is this area of demonic activities. A situation where you get initiated by blood. You get initiated by oath to be committed till death, to be membership of that group. So when you look at it, you realize that some certain values that should have been pronounced in such fraternity to encourage everybody and the upcoming generation to be more academic were not really planted. Were not really the real picture that went around. This area of violence, and the first court that started the violence is pirate and buccaneer.
Okay, let me return to that thing you said in Yoruba, which Oji will need understanding for. Eye onishasun, eye mbuta. Correct me if I'm wrong. The bird does not cook, does not prepare its meal,
right,
but then it feeds very well. From the Yoruba thing, the essence of that, which maybe the buccaneers have now adopted, is not necessarily, it doesn't connote negativity. It's just basically to say, because you can even use it in prayer, to say that the Almighty who looks after the needs of the bird without having a pot, without having a kitchen, can also, and his feeding can also do that for you.
All right.
I concede that cultists might have, apply that in the sense that it was not meant for. But let's go to the cases in secondary schools.
Well, before you do that,
okay,
Steve,
please.
You didn't answer Steve's question, and that is, what inspired your
yes.
book? Were you a cultist? Because that was one of my questions as well. How did you get to write this book? And my other question was about the introduction to cultism. Now, a lot of people blame it on improper parenting. Mm. Some people say maybe, people want to emulate the Nigerian, politicians, and they're really hungry to become powerful. Now, what would you blame that on? But first, why did you write this book?
I wrote this book because I realized the world we live, the world around us, do not understand the real menace we're facing. So we see most of our colleagues who were involved in cultism as people that needed our help. So we were just crying inside. Nobody could feel our pain. So I felt I could pencil these things down.
So were you a cultist?
I was never a cultist. Okay. And
were you a victim? Were you ever a victim?
Of course, I've been victims many instances. I've been killed many instances, and God spared me. Yes.
You've been shot at?
Yes.
Wow.
I've been harmed. I was popularly known in university as Akin.
What university was that?
I went to Olabisi Onabanjo University, and from there, I was able to project to the level of being the national coordinator of anti-cult activities in this country. And that earned me my first job with UI.
So you were never involved in cultism at all?
Never.
Now, that question, what would you blame it on? People say is improper parenting. Why do you think people want to join these cult groups?
I blamed it on breakdown of our social system, not parenting.
Okay.
There are some certain things that are also involved. They are interwoven. But we should stop the idea of finding somebody to blame for everything.
Okay.
We should start taking up responsibility. Can you believe that long before today, before we were born, many things were not going as they should be in our society? And this thing continues to eat deep into our society. And when all these social values are down, it creates rooms for a lot of devices to start springing up and causing a lot of trouble. One, we have a record of too many killings and bloodshed. Let me give you one of the instances that affected me so much I can be passionate about this. I was at home in the middle of the night on campus, and there was shooting and killings, and we had to come out and try to go to that direction to help. When we got there, we met these students. They have been massacred. I don't want to talk much about it. I just want to use that brief word so that people know.
Wow.
So when we got there, the account of these students was so touching. One of the students, had to narrate to me that when they came, they were looking for a rival member, another rival gang. So they got there and they didn't see them. And these boys they met, that was their first semester exam as a student. They were jambites. And they realized, they now said that these ones are jambites, they are nobody, let's be going. One of them now said, forgiveness is a sin. You can imagine all this kind of codes, all this kind of beliefs, all this kind of languages that I said from the moment they created them, they've planted those seeds of evil. So they said forgiveness is a sin. And the leader felt passionate that, but these ones are kids now. He said, no. He said, belief is belief. And he said, well, there's nothing you can do. Finish them. Do you believe that they started macheting these children who knew nothing?
Wow.
They were not cultists. That happened in Olabisi Onabanjo University. And they were not cultists. They were nothing the people were looking for. And we later realized that when they were even coming, one of the persons they were looking for was actually outside. He was smoking cigarette. Maybe the way God wanted to save his life, probably to make him hard very think. And when they passed, he knew these people were like, he quickly discharged himself. So they didn't see him. They just surrounded the building, went into the building, and met innocent students. A student was shot down. He was shot in the head. If you see it was a very devastating thing. that we have to call for the school to close down. You know, you can imagine all these instances informed us that there is something that is satanic about these things that inspire them. That even when they jojo means when they gyrate, they sing.
Yes.
When they sing, I am telling you, what comes into them, what moves them is more than ordinary.
So do you know the reason I asked that question is because it's not about joining the cult, because once that has happened, it has happened. We want to know the reason for it. And, you know, I've talked about improper parenting, I've talked about people wanting to emulate our politicians, and the government structure also in maybe public school or even punishment as a deterrent. How do we prevent these children from joining the cult?
Let me build on that because of time and moving it to out of the campuses, you know, our institutions, to secondary schools or primary schools, you know, secondary schools, like Dowen, for example.
Yes.
I mean, we're talking about on the streets, I can understand, you know, and the law should deal with it. But I'm talking about schools where you entrust, you know, your child into their care, and then, you know, a child comes back home dead or maimed. Do you think it's a question of bullying or cultism at that stage? And you know, of course, that we all experience some forms of bullying. In those days, they would say that, oh, chancing, you know, that I've chanced that guy, you know, took something from you, you know, elbow you and stuff like that. These days, you know, the fanciful word is to say bullying. At what point did, using the Darwin example, if what we're hearing is true, because the investigations are still going on, did that thing move from bullying to cultism? And what do you think the authorities, the parents, you know, and the law should be looking at this point?
See, when this thing moved from campus to primary and secondary schools, there was process. Some grown-ups in higher institutions come to those places to initiate them. And you say,
secondary schools?
Yes. And you know what? They were trying to have more members, so they catch them young. They say, catch them young. So they catch those kids young, so that before they enter university, they are already a member of various courses. And let me tell you, they don't look for dullards. They always look for very intelligent, good ones. So imagine those who killed Sylvester.
Allegedly.
Very, very intelligent.
Allegedly.
Students. Yes. So those have been the way they recruit them. And you see,
but why would you kill if you need their membership?
You see, they're almost 85, more than 85% of cult members are forced into it. But the society is not always there to help them out and save them. So the process that these cultists, they will come, they will intimidate you. Even some will deceive you. They are going for a party. So over 85% of them do not join willingly. Over 85% of those people involved in schools don't join willingly, but they have a culture and tradition. You go, you get whatever you want. So they look at you, whether you're a man or woman, and say they want you, they want you.
Forceful
So
initiation.
that is the spirit they have. They do whatever they want, and they will get away with it.
What can be done?
So then there's the
What
security
can be done?
in the schools then.
Yeah.
If that's
What can be
you're
done?
claiming, that they force these children to join the cult.
Yes.
What are the teachers doing? What is the security system in the school? And so those are the questions that I think could be addressed at this point.
Did your book
And how can
address
that-
such
Yes,
things?
it does.
Yeah.
It does.
So can you share with us?
You know, one way is that there is this, when the students socialize among themselves, they relate among themselves. Most of all these teachers won't be there. And many of them, they won't just come to school and capture them. They get them at home. Yes, they get them within the neighborhood. And then they infiltrate into the school. Your school, so school. And some of them, I remember then, they do this to generate revenue. When they first started, because they need money to buy weapons, they need money to run a lot of activities. So they stormed schools. They started scrambling for children that time. So they went into secondary school, primary school, recruit many of them, generate for. But along the line, So that is, we cannot rule out the fact that the street gangs and the campus courts and the school courts, they are all interwoven. Because you will see a single frat have members in all these places. Let me give you an example why we cannot rule them out. Look at the case of Abekuta, where that's Yewa, where they went, the teacher punished a student for making noise, they were disturbing the whole school, punished the whole class, and 4 out of the students, then they went and brought some people. The society felt they rent thugs. They never rented any thug. They are members of their courts, and they all have weapons. So if we don't understand that these things are interwoven, you cannot separate school from the society.
Okay, tell us 1 or 2 key things that can stem this negative tide. Will proscription of all these cult groups, associations, be one of the first things that government should do, or has it been done, but it's not been?
I believe the Akwa Ibom state government has done that already.
Exactly.
Sir, prescription alone have not solved the problem.
Okay. What will solve?
So we need holistic approach.
Okay. Let me ask you. In March, right, the Lagos state government, also had, a bill passed into law where 21 years in jail for
membership
convicted
of cultism.
cult members, and 15 years for those who are, have seemed to be abating cultism as well. Now, is that enough? And you mentioned something about, these gangs. How can you tell the difference between an armed robber and a cultist?
There are differences because an armed robber comes to dispossess you of a property, or a cultist is operating based on the instruction and the belief of the group. So if the group have an agenda, he works within that agenda. They can decide that it's our agenda to attack social person. Even if it's your family, they don't care. If you have to lead, you must do it. So a lot of things plays around it. The menace, the solution to the problem is not making laws alone. We already have enough laws in this society that can contain this thing. But the will is not there. The motivation is not there. Those things that this society needs to do is not just mere passing law and talking about these things. We need to start inculcating anti-cult lessons into curriculum for schools. Okay. Because there are always stages when these children, they need attention. When you don't give them, you see, the devil is out there.
At what level, from primary or secondary?
It no longer, there is no level anymore.
No, I mean to inculcate the...
You start inculcating them from babies because now they catch them young.
Did you?
I'm telling you, you will not believe, even primary schools. So we should just realize that it has reached a stage.
An alarming
so alarming that we should start looking beyond those little things. Like we have been organizing this teaching, we are teaching anti-cult lessons. Yes. That's what we've been doing.
Perfect.
And we have not been able to see, nobody support you.
Yeah. Where can we get your book?
What can we get?
Has it been sold? Is it in bookshops?
Yeah, well, it has not been all around like that. We don't have reading culture like that. So only activities. It has been a book that has been reviewed by Lagos State University. Yes.
So you don't have support either for the book to travel far or for the anti-cultism movement that you...
We do.
No support.
So when do you do your seminars? When do you do your seminars?
We go to places.
We
go to places. If you go online, you see some of our pictures.
Okay. Perfect.
You see people not really liking it, not really spreading it. Well, and the people who comes there, the people who come and argue with us that this thing we are doing. So we keep the one fighting this cultism.
Well done.
So, but the society need to understand that they need to take the campaign to every homes, every nooks and crannies of the streets, every schools. There are lessons that the parents need to learn.
Yes.
But they are not giving them the right lessons.
We want to thank you.
Children need to
we want to thank you for a brilliant discussion, and we also want to encourage you that don't relent.
Please.
You will be noticed. You have been noticed, and the system needs this kind of intervention. Thank you so much, Aki, for joining us.
Thank you.